welcome to Hatching for Health, the Jessica Hatch Show. Tonight's episode was brought to you by Hungry's, which is a fabulous Mediterranean restaurant in the Rice Village area. They also have one located in the Energy Corridor. So try them, they are amazing, and we're thankful that they sponsor tonight's episode. So we are going to be joined by a virtual guest by the name of Kristine. And I've actually spoken with her business partner in the past. They own a company by the name of Rare, and the website is findyourrare.com. So Kristine is going to be joining us right now. How are you?
Hi, nice to hear you again.
Yes, so you are located, where are you at exactly?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Okay, incredible. So we're getting to connect with somebody from Texas all the way to Washington, D.C. So that's amazing right there. Just being able to share your story. I was fortunate enough to be on y'all's podcast that you guys also have, where you talk to different entrepreneurs as well as just families with children with rare conditions. And your story is very unique. The first I've heard. So you were not diagnosed as a child, which is most of what we see on the show. So tell us a little bit about your diagnosis and when that actually took place.
Yeah, so I was, in 2016, I started to feel a tweak in my knee, and that's like the symptom I remember most. I was an abnormally healthy child, never really got strep throat or anything of that nature. And so 2016 kind of started down this path of unhealthy, if you will. And it was marked by a ton of fatigue and just very random symptoms. And it ultimately took another 5 years for me to be diagnosed. And I'm actually one of the lucky ones because my mother-in-law is a doctor, and she, no one was really believing me and kind of brushing it off on mental health and stuff. And so she was like, take pictures of like when things swell or when you have rashes. And that probably cut my wait time in half, which is really sad, but the truth. And so I got diagnosed roughly 2 years ago with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, POTS, the trifecta of mast cell, and dysautonomia. And then what kind of makes it definitely unique is that I have the autoimmune component, which is small fiber neuropathy secondary to undifferentiated connective tissue disease, which really just means they have no idea which one of my IGs are attacking my body, but they know that one is. After a ton of negative tests, basically, that's all they could give me, was that something is attacking you.
Wow. So essentially, like, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is to be specific, it's like an autoimmune disease, but it happens to be followed by like several other conditions that encompass it. Like, it's not just I have Ehlers-Danlos, I also have all of these other things. So like, tell us like maybe some of the most common symptoms of it that you basically encompass, like right now, all of a sudden at the age of 30.
So I know for me, I've never broken a bone or subluxed anything. And so that's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is when the collagen is what's attacking your body. And there's a ton of collagen, obviously, in your body. So it can be very, it usually doesn't take this long to get to the point where symptoms are showing, because there's a ton of collagen, it's attacking your body. And so there's a lot of it to attack your body. But for me, it did take a really long time to kind of show up. And so I would say, besides the brain fog, the fatigue, kind of all the staples you hear with these autoimmune or rare diseases, what's specific to Ehlers-Danlos is a subluxation of your joints for no reason, really. I can be laying down in bed, and my hip will just slip out, and it will just be excruciating pain. And it started, like I said, in my knee, but I was running marathons at the time. It didn't seem that off, right?
Yeah,
and
you're
so,
like an over overdoing it. So
yes,
maybe this is just like telling me to
my
slow
running
down.
coach, bringing back my high school running coach, who always said, if you're probably running on too many on the one side of the road. Like you want to flip the way you're running because it's like disproportionate. So that's what I thought it was, right? Like, because I never imagined that you could like wake up sick and never get better. Like this whole chronic illness world, like just didn't exist for me.
No, you had told me. Yeah, you personally told me you were a big athlete. Like you said, you were like more normal than most. I mean, like there was nothing that would have, put in your head that, hey, when I get into, my adult years, I'm going to have a chronic illness. So what are the things that you've had to adjust your lifestyle, I'm sure in many ways to, actually be able to live the life that you want to live?
Honestly, everything has changed. Yes, there's like different degrees, and I think that's part of the accepting and grieving process when you do get sick, when you're not sick from a young age. I knew an entirely different life than the one I live now. And so it was definitely accepting, but also grieving the person I was. Something as simple as like, I love a glass of wine after work. I still try to make that work. It just doesn't happen. Like, it's just not something that, like I can do really anymore. And so just how I socialized or interacted with the world changed. Like I said, and it was a slow process. So I think that was even worse, is that it was like I didn't even realize it was happening, because like I talk about it like pins dropping through this like whole journey, and then I turned around and I was like, who am I? Like nothing looks the same, nothing tastes the same. Like I said, most times I will look at pictures of myself, and I'll just be like, whoa, like just don't even recognize the person, whether it be weight fluctuation or just like the energy that you see behind someone who, isn't maybe just like faking it and smiling for the picture.
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
No, I can imagine. So you don't have children currently? Okay. But that is something that you want for your future. You're just with this condition. Is that something where they're like, just absolutely don't try and make that a part of your life? Or is it more of like, it's really high risk? Like, what does that look like for you?
There's a high infertility rate. And it's also a high risk, like pregnancy. But I think for me, what I'd be willing to double down on that. It's more so when I think about the fact that probably about 15 days of the month, I am in like absent from life. That's when I really struggle to see it in my future, or see it at this point in my future, because I just feel like it's half of the time.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that.
Yeah. So it's like thinking about bringing somebody else into the world, like when you're trying to obviously like make things better for you every day, because I want to encourage you. It's like from how you grew up and the athlete like you were, and like the competitive nature, it's like you're gonna get to a happy place. I don't want to cry to you. Obviously you are dealing with so much than I can ever imagine, but like you're so strong. Like just the company that you've created and the abundance of what you guys are doing there, you're putting your energy into the right place, and for that, like it's gonna get better. Like I just feel confident in that for you. But speaking of that, tell us about Rare, because it's such a great name. It's you're just exactly that, considering the fact that you're diagnosed at this age, and completely trying to spin your life into exactly what that looks like. But tell us about how it actually came about.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Like I said, I didn't really feel like I fit in anywhere, not my old life, not my new life. And I think I'm starting to like see, for instance, like I'll never be organized again. Like I'm so type A. And so I'm used to, if you work hard at something, and practice, like you ultimately will reap the benefits. And that's not really how it is anymore for me. I can do everything right and still wake up in a flare. I can, not be organized to save my life, which is very typical for me. So I didn't feel like I fit anywhere. I spent, I went to grad school, I'm a therapist. I was working, here in DC, had my dream job, and like everything was just like falling apart around me. And I didn't feel good anymore because I also felt like I didn't have emotional space to be a therapist, right? Like, because I felt like there was just so much going on. So I didn't feel good at anything, and like I didn't belong anywhere. And so it's actually funny. I started to get into like creating things as just a way to kind of like hobby, quote, when you go from being super active and like always out to not being able to do that anymore. I was someone who would always like enjoy those little things from Etsy, but like just buy them because I could never create them. And so I started doing that stuff. But I knew that wasn't it. Like it didn't feel like felt good that I was learning things. So ultimately I was like going to, excuse me. And how the idea actually really came to me was I was fighting with my wife and we were on our way to the doctor, and I was complaining because I didn't want to go to another doctor's appointment in which they told me nothing was wrong with me, or, just as an invalidating experience. And, she can't really understand because she's just, we had gotten married like several months before. She always says I didn't expect the sickness and health to come so soon. But so like her life completely adjusted as well. And so we're arguing, and my bratty self naturally like marches up the stairs thinking like I have this brilliant idea. Like, you don't believe I'm going through something? Like, fine. I'm going to write something on a sweatshirt and you're going to do it. So like, I remember those micro letters, like you flipped them and like I'm like ironed them on with like a real iron.
Yeah.
So I was coaching high school swimming at the time, so I had a bunch of leftover, and on a black American Eagle sweatshirt, I just like pulled out of my closet, I just like wrote, "This is rare." And I was like so ready. I like put it on. I was like, "You want to see something visible? I'm going to give you something visible." Like marched halfway down the stairs. And it was honestly probably like the universe, whatever you want to call it. Like it was like something in that moment just spoke. I was not mad. I had the most peace and clarity that I've ever had. And it was just like, this is what you need to do. You need to start the conversation. You need to provide a space for people who are rare. And for me, it's, yes, a rare disease, but there's so many invisible struggles that we're all going through.
Absolutely.
That don't get talked about.
Yeah, no, that's a fabulous story. So we're going to come right back from the commercial break and get right back to that, because that was, one of those moments. It was a defining moment for Kristine, and obviously for a lot of people that now get to buy her clothes, shoes. I mean, there's a combination of stuff we're going to talk about. So we are going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to see a little bit of footage of this company, Rare, as well as some commercials from our sponsor, Hungry's. So we'll be right back with you.
Guests in your home should only include the ones you invite. When it's time to unwind and catch up with friends, the last thing you need is more work to do. The BioMist Mosquito Elimination System will put your mind at ease and entertains those unwanted guests, giving you the undivided quality time, focus, and attention you and your guests deserve. BioMist Mosquito Elimination System will also rid your home from webs and spiders while eliminating mosquitoes carrying mosquito-borne illnesses such as West Nile, dengue fever, and others.
Welcome back from the break. If you are just joining us, we have Kristine on the show. Now, she is the CEO of Rare, and she has a rare condition herself known as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So, Kristine, before we took the break, you were talking specific about, when this aha moment came to you, and it was basically came about from frustration and just, others not seeing the pain you're going through internally. And so you were talking about you got a sweatshirt and you literally put letters on it that said, "This is Rare." So let's take it right back to where we were and tell us a little bit about the product line and all of these items that they're conversation starters. They really are.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that moment, I just realized that if I couldn't hold people accountable for things that I didn't know before I knew, and how do I do that? And so for me, I was like, I'm definitely not one to let's say march or do, things like that. But I knew I wanted to be, to start bringing the invisible visible. So from that point, I was September, and 6 months, almost maybe that January, I launched Rare. And it launched with 29 products originally. Wow. Now it's up to 534 products or something of that nature. So it's definitely grown a lot. I mean, I think I've been the most amazed with that is that I really was doing this to for my own mental health, to give myself a space, and to just, like I said, feel good at something. And then it was I couldn't believe how it was catching wildfire. It felt like.
Yeah, so 500 plus items. I mean, tell us about some of these. I know I did have one on the show as a giveaway, the sweatshirt that you guys made, which is incredible for any of you who saw that giveaway item. It's got 2 zippers here on the front for any ports that you need to basically have IVs tied to, and then right at the actual vein area, which is such a, I share that with some of the oncologists on the pediatric side and adult side, and just great feedback. I'm like, they should have this sitting in their office, for patients, or even, in the room that they sit and have the IVs done. So that item in itself is very, very unique. But tell us some of the other ones that you have on the site.
Yeah, so that one originally actually came from, I didn't have treatment at the time. My aunt was going through chemo. And so I kind of had this idea of there's a lot of dehumanizing aspects of being a patient, Velcro shoes, kind of having your tail hanging out. And so I always just wanted to, the more I got into this community, the more I realized things that I really didn't like, and even just microaggressions that I had as someone who was able that now I'm not. But what really pushed me to make that was when my aunt got breast cancer. Oddly enough, though, my treatment started shortly after that. And so it was pretty cool because the tech pack went in, and then when the prototype came back, I was right in the midst of, after waiting 4 years to get IG transfusions, I was right there in the midst of it. So it was the nurses and doctors were all finding the right placement. So that was a really cool experience. But it sounds silly, but I teach. So when I would be in treatment, I'd have my virtual screen on, and it'd be scary for the kids. I work in elementary school. And so that's kind of what I wanted to make sure that my own kind of swag, but also, a way in which, I would be able to access what I needed without taking my stuff off.
So you would actually do treatments while teaching, on some of your virtual classes? Wow, that's a great way to, do it in a hidden way, but still being able to accomplish. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. It's definitely not preferred, but I think that goes into, the really big, problems with accommodations and FMLA, which I guess would be a whole nother episode. But that's just one aspect of the struggle that you don't really realize is such a problem until you're kind of thrown into it. So one of my big sayings is definitely don't wait until it happens to you to care. That's why I wanted Rare to also be accessible and something everyone would want to kind of wear, whether you had a rare disease, another invisible struggle, or whether you just like kind of liked the word rare in your own journey. But that if I could, for everything that like is sold, and I could educate so that people weren't like me almost. People didn't have to find out what this world was like before. Mm-hmm. It's almost like caring more, care before it's your daughter, your sister, your coworker, your best friend, or you. Like, you have to care before that, because honestly, once it's happening to you, it's a little too late in the terms of like making like, you're surviving a lot of the time. And so it's hard to think of, creating like, legislation changes when I'm like, can barely shower. And so.
What type of, just on the medication side and like your personal visits with doctors, like, what kind of treatments are you having to undergo right now?
So right now, I have transfusions. I have Botox for my headaches because none of my medications are working. I take about 14 pills a day. Those are, it doesn't sound like
No,
much,
but anybody who takes 14 pills that are not vitamins is, that is a lot. But you say transfusion, is that what you said, transfusion?
Yeah, so I get like transfusions, and then because I moved away from infusions, they weren't unfortunately helping me. I started to retain water.
Okay.
It's like the other thing that's a little difficult. No one tells you that like every treatment that you're gonna get is going to have a symptom that you currently have, and like trying to navigate if something is working for you is really difficult when you could be fatigued from the medicine, you could be retaining water from the medicine, or you can do it from the disease.
And it's so hard to follow like what's what.
That's what made COVID really hard too.
Yeah, so with your condition, like typically like doing infusions would be the best option, but that was not working for you. So then transfusion, what exactly does that mean? Like transfusion?
So right now they're trying to, and like there's so much research going on, and in terms of like Ehlers-Danlos, especially with the hypermobility type becoming, coming up more, or at least becoming a category that is more frequently diagnosed. But they're starting to find like iron deficiencies and anemia to be a part. So the last like 2 treatments I've gotten have been actually like blood transfusions to try to correct how severely anemic I've become.
Okay. Wow, so that's something you're currently trying to see if that helps with it. Okay, yeah. And then 14 pills a day. And what you had mentioned, one other thing that you're, I guess, doing on a daily basis as well.
Oh, so every 3 months I have to get Botox.
The Botox, okay, for the migraines.
For the migraines. It's funny because, this is I'd say my second cycle since like making this switch. First of all, like those are really big needles, but also, one of the side effects they don't tell you is like, so my eye started like drooping the other day, and like my wife thought I was having a stroke, and like I didn't know what was going on, but ultimately, right, like, so for the next 3 months my eyes will continue like to droop, because like that's like a side effect that it just like, it sounds so silly, it's not a big deal, but when you just think of like one more thing, it's just like, okay.
You're like, come on. Because I know when like people get it for the aesthetic purposes, for wrinkles, like, that can happen if it's like placed wrong, but I bet the amount of Botox that you have to get to really, truly rid the headaches is much more than, being related to like wrinkles and eyebrow, concerns with like, when you raise your eyebrows, the wrinkles. But so it probably, because of the amount, it like, you can't do anything about the fact that it's gonna take an effect like that on you, and you're like, really? I mean, come on.
I love that. That's the thing. It's just like, okay, I'll deal with the weight gain, or the fact that I have no control over my weight, that I can be eating like perfectly clean, or McDonald's, and like if I'm certain medications will make me like retain water, especially with the POTS, because a lot of it is like your salt, and so like they literally prescribe salt tablets. And so like that's not like great
You're like, who would have known? Yeah.
Right? Like I was low sodium my whole life, but apparently not anymore.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of time, but I do want like for people to know you also have a podcast, so I think that's important for others to know. I think some of our footage people saw talked a little bit about that, but how can people like connect with you, purchase from your site, maybe be on one of your podcasts? Like give us a little bit of details on where to find you.
Absolutely. So one thing I did really well was once I figured out what I wanted to do this was at Find Your Rare on every social media channel. We own the domain, so you can do like a name, info at Find Your Rare. And the website
that's
is
findyourrare.com?
Yes.
Okay.
It's findyourrare.com. And from there will be like so many different options. If you go on there, you'll see new collections, new products coming out, daily, because it is still 100% like how I keep my mental sanity. And so I just kind of handle my frustrations with this out there. So that leaves a lot of new products, but you'll also find a ton of resources as well as like the ability to be a guest blogger, be on the podcast, share your story with us, create something of your own. We have a whole customized section where like I'll like sit down with you and kind of just like talk to you about what is it you're envisioning. We do weddings. Yeah.
That is fabulous. So it's for any of these, I guess, questions that people might have to address to you, they can find you through the website and connect with you personally, as well as basically buy merchandise. And I know all of your purchases allow for people to support even other organizations at their purchase point, which I thank you for putting Hatching for Health as one of those.
It's one of my favorite things actually.
Yeah. So
is that you pick where your 15% goes.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I mean, you're consistently giving back, in every way possible, really. So thank you so much for being on the show. I wish I had more time. I'm like, I want to hear about all the products, but I'm going to just go in there and shop. I bought one of y'all's fabulous bracelets. I love that. And then I have this sweatshirt. I actually went running in it the other day. I'm like, you can use it for different purposes, like air, hey.
And it's fashion forward. So even
absolutely.
If you don't have an IV, you could still wear it.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you, Kristine. We really appreciate you being on the show, and we will be in touch. So,
thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Hatching for Health. Be sure and go to findyourrare.com and purchase one of the many items that they have. Some incredible things, whether you have a rare condition or you are just wanting to shop. They've got from tennis shoes to sweatshirts. They have it all. So we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week right back here at 7:30.